Alright, so last one is I wanted to show you some points that I've wanted to get off my chest. So around 10 years ago, it just kept happening and popping up, and it made me feel just sick to my stomach. So it was about interpreters and all these groups that are focused on autism. And there's Alexander Graham Bell and the EHDI. And so they had rallies and meetings and workshops, and they would give us them, and we need interpreters for all of them. They're like, no, you gotta pick which one you want to go to. And you have to come up to us, and you have to be like, I want an interpreter, and they would give you one. Not already have one ready for you for all of them, no. If you're deaf or hard of hearing or whatever. And the EHDI, they had meetings that were focused on deaf babies and their families and the variations of that. And just deaf hearing, they would go to these workshops for all of them. Would they provide interpreters? No. You had to pick and choose if you want one, and they would give one then. I was like, no, that's just wrong. And it's just some strong autism. So we would go to these, and we would be given an ASL interpreter and stuff. But no, you had to pick and choose. For the Alexander Graham Bell, it was 2009, and it was a free society. And they would take up these rallies and meetings, and we'd go socialize. And we went to this rally, and we were socializing, and it was just a huge building, and there was a control center, and it was up there, and they would have ASL interpreters, and they would be standing up behind these windows, and we were deaf down there on the bottom floor, and they would spy on us. They would tell these people what we were signing, what we were saying, and for 3 hours they were doing this, which means our rally that we had to pay for, and it was $30 an hour for these interpreters. So how much is that altogether? $120 an hour for all 3 hours. And they would watch us, and they would spy, and these people would hear this, and they would type down what we were saying and put it up on their website. And so the point of interpreters is to spy on them. And for autism, it's just coming down on us, and it's just wrong. So the year's 2012, and the EHDI, they had an oppression meeting, and deaf people went to that, and we were meeting with people, interpreters, and all night we were socializing, eating, drinking, whatever. So we were meeting people, and we were just communicating, have a good time. And then one of them came over to me, and they were like, that's not allowed. You can't talk to these interpreters. There's a line, and you can't cross that. And it's like a chain link fence. So the interpreters are over there, and we're deaf, and we can't cross that line. We can't enter there. And the interpreters are standing there socializing, and the deaf, they come up, and they're seeing this. They're watching this. And it's just depressing. And we're deaf. We're over here, and we give you our language, everything, we give you our deaf culture, and they're just standing over there, and they see our faces as money signs. That's all that we are. And that's just messed up. So the other day, I was talking to one of my friends, and he's deaf. And we were walking along, and I was communicating with him, and we went into this place, and what happened was, there was an interpreter there. And they were saying everything that we were signing and talking, and she was voicing everything. And I look over and I'm like, no, I don't want that to be said. That's just between me and him. And the interpreter kept on doing it, kept on voicing, and I was like, can you stop? And she kept on doing it. And so what did? I turned my back on her. So it prevented her from seeing. And one problem that I noticed was the interpreter. Everyone else in those interpreters were not listening to what was being said, and they were communicating everything that she was saying, that I was saying, and that wasn't right. There was a problem there, so that made me feel just wrong. And moving on to the year 2013 in California. We went to this little meeting there and for this rally, and it was just nice. And we entered, and there was interpreters. There was two, and one of the interpreters was amazing, supportive. They just had a good heart, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm at my job. I can't communicate with you. I have to be an interpreter." And I'm like, "Okay, fine." So the other interpreter, they just didn't care. It was a struggle just communicating with them. They didn't care. So for our culture, that's not right. We need an interpreter, and they just like their precious money. It's just a job. They facilitate. They go home, but it's not honest. And they didn't hear. They heard and talked and were receptive and whatever. Was it equal? Is that equal? So there was another rally, and it was a meeting, and we went there, and there was two interpreters, Allie, and then there was the other interpreter, and so one was fine. We were socializing, communicating. When the time was finished, though, I raised my hand, and the interpreter got to the last point, and they were just signing and interpreting, and they stood there and crossed their arms, and I was like, no. They didn't say anything, they didn't voice anything, they didn't communicate anything. I'm like, I need this to be asked, and they turned off their voice because the time was over, like the meeting was finished. I was like, no, I've got a question. They didn't care. So I asked my other one to come up, and she ran up, and she was signing for me and voicing for me, and when they were finished, it just made me feel so sick to my stomach and bothered me. It made me feel like that's like seriously wrong with someone. And the interpreter community, we asked them their opinion on this, how they felt, and their perspective, and they're like, ooh, that feels wrong. It's not honest, it's not equal. And they're taking advantage of you. The deaf community, they're taking advantage of that. The deaf language, taking advantage of that. And the culture, just taking advantage of it. Why? Because many years ago, we had to deal with this, and we had to deal with getting interpreters first and sharing our beautiful language. And then moving on, we had to go confront these people in our lives, and it was just recently that we had our rights. And moving on, people need to know that we've had 200 years of oppression in our language and our being deaf in our communications and babies and stuff. And the interpreters come up to us and they just see this and they see the impression. It's like, yeah, you're right. Now it's time we stand up and we said we've had enough. Interpreters going back and forth between money, whatever, these lines and these hidden societies and autism and this oppression and just not caring. It's time for it to stop. You have to look into your heart, see what you value most as a whole, and are you more connected to a job or the community? What's the point of you doing this? So you need to realize that ASL and our deaf community, we've given it to you. You have to accept that. So if you're not standing up and taking up arms and talking to people and telling people about this, in your job, in your job in the future, it's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you the same way. Don't forget about that. You got to think about yourself. Stand up, take arms, be connected. If you don't care, you don't need to become an interpreter. Goodbye. Just think about that. And talk to people in the society. And now's the time. We just have enough of this. We've had enough. Thank you.